So, hello. Thanks for joining us. People hear voices that come from the spiritual world. You're rarely going to find any kind of religion that started up or spiritual movement without some kind of hearing a voice that came from the other side. This has had a huge impact on human history. People are hearing these voices all the time in their own experiences. It happens. It's a thing. But how does it happen? In this show today, we're going to give you the mechanics of how communication from the spiritual world to your brain happens. And it depends on what part of the brain you're getting communicated to, what kind of spirits are communicating with you, how they interact with your inner ear, how they focus on one another to send an envoy to another community of spirits. There's a lot going on. We're going to unpack it all right now. Okay, this is how it works. If you've ever heard some kind of message from beyond the veil, or for that matter, if anyone's ever heard something spiritual throughout the course of human history, there's always a process that has to happen to allow that communication to occur. The first problem is we got a language barrier problem. And I know we had a recent episode where I talked about how you already intuitively know the language that angels speak. But what I mean and what I said in that episode is that you will know that language when you cross over. It's deep down in your spirit. But in the mind that you use every day, you don't speak the same language that angels do. Right now, the angel language has nothing in common with the earthly words and language that we use. So if an angel just came up, and let's say you were living, now, this is a map of the afterlife. There's a portion here called the world of spirits. That's where your spirit is right now, even as your physical body is in the world. So if you're just hanging out here in the world of spirits, being cool, and an angel says something to you directly in the same language that angels speak, gibberish, or I don't even know what you would not understand what that angel is talking about. So this is the fix for that. This is from Heaven and Hell 246. Angels who talk with us do not talk in their own language, but in ours, or in other languages in which we may be fluent, not in languages of which we have no knowledge. So for me, angel would talk in English or in Pig Latin. Those are the languages that I know, but it won't speak French to me. But how does that work? How do they know those languages? How do they know which one I know? It has to do with the act of turning toward. If you've heard anything from an angel, the first thing that happened was the angel turned toward you, which matters. In the spiritual world, feelings and thoughts can be shared, and people's minds can be directly connected, almost like computers into the same network, but you have to turn toward each other in order for it to work. This is from Heaven and Hell 246. When angels talk with us, they turn toward us and unite with us. Everything has significance, has psychological significance in the spiritual world. So the act of turning toward is a manifestation of an alignment of minds. That's what has to happen for communication to take place. He goes on, and one consequence of this union is that the two parties have much the same thought processes. When we say, we're in the same headspace, that's what I'm talking about. Since our thinking is closely allied with our memory and our language flows from it, the two parties share the same language. The angel downloads your languages from your mind. That's how, in a very fast unconscious process, immediately the intention the angel has shows up in the language that you have. Further, when angels or spirits come to us and unite with us by turning toward us, they enter into our whole memory so completely that it seems exactly as though they themselves know everything we know, including our languages. So there's a turning toward each other, which a spiritual turning toward means getting a similarity of mind, which the angel can pull the strings to have happen on their side. Then once there's that facing each other, it's like communal mind. The angel knows what you know understands what you understand, but yet can speak their mind into yours. So that's why you end up being able to hear what they're saying. When it's over, they turn away, they go back into their own angel mind, speak in their own angel language to whoever else is saying, hey, I just talked to this person on earth. That's great. How are they doing? Oh, I don't know. So that's how the information flows. What I want to talk about now, though, is how come you can hear it even though nothing physical has happened there. If you've ever had a spiritual experience with an auditory component to it, you know that it's loud and it sounds really real. And the reason why is because speech from angels can actually activate our physical hearing system. Swedenborg wrote that when you're hearing something spiritual, it uses the same mechanism of your ear stuff and the brain to give your consciousness a sound experience. This is what he wrote. When angels and spirits talk with us, it sounds just as audible as when we talk with each other. But it is not audible to people who are nearby, only to ourselves. Did you hear that? No. This is because the speech of an angel or spirit flows first into our thought and then by an inner route into our organ of hearing so that it activates it from within. Our speech with each other flows first into the air and comes to our organ of hearing and activates it by an outward route. Sound waves coming in here. We can see from this that the speech of an angel or spirit with us is heard within us, and that since it activates our hearing mechanism just as much as our speech with each other does, it is just as audible. I one time was surfing the internet, believe it or not, and I saw this thing that said, hey, there are these studies that say when people hear non-physical voices, the reason they seem so real is because the part of your brain that's involved in hearing lights up. That's what they found out. To me, that's exactly what Swedenborg is talking about. Spiritual experiences are using the hardware that you hear with to communicate with you. Swedenborg added this: the fact that the speech of an angel or spirit flows down into the ear from within has been made clear to me as from the way it flowed into my tongue as well and made it tremble slightly. There's a little bit of in that speech area. And it's not weird that, it is weird, but it's not weird within Swedenborg's system that the communication from the spiritual world would have such a particular influence on his body, because that's par for the course for spiritual things. One of the very coolest and most elegant things about the spiritual world that Swedenborg describes is also one of the weirdest things about it. Your body is a table of contents to the whole spiritual world. Because every spirit there is organized into the form of the human body. So anyone you talk to from the other side lives somewhere in the grand body. So, for example, if you do things that are like what an eye does for the body, if you go out and learn things, it's like you're living in the eye part. I told you it was weird. Swedenborg got to know this fact so well that he could be aware of who was talking to him based on what part of his body interacted with them or was influenced by them when they came up to him. He found that when it was God, the Lord himself, interacting, it went into his forehead and from there into the whole face. That was God's influence. When he was interacting with someone and it had an influence on his temples and the whole region that covered the cerebrum, that was spiritual angels, because those are intelligence focused, and this is a part of us that corresponds to intelligence. When he was interacting with the heavenly angels, they influenced the back of the head, the area that covers the cerebellum from one ear to the other and then down the neck, because this part in the human being and so in the grand body corresponds to wisdom in us. And those are wisdom-based angels. So he says in Heaven and Hell 251, all the speech of angels comes into our thoughts by these two paths. This has enabled me to notice just which angels were talking with me. So if you're talking to an angel, check which part? Which part are you coming in? I know who you are. sometimes when you're talking to an angel and you're like, I'm just sitting here talking to one angel, you're not actually. You're talking to an entire group of angels, but it only seems like you're talking to one. This is how that works. It has to do with the potency of spiritual turning toward, and how the sharing of minds can open up all these possibilities. So first, Swedenborg observed that two angels can be very far away from each other, and yet if they turn right toward each other, the sound of their voice is loud and clear to the other one, as if they were close by, even if they're far apart. I think of it like, in the playground where there's that little tube and you can, and on the other side of the playground, and you're like, wait, what did you say? But sometimes it works. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do they still make those? Also, it works in reverse, that two angels could be very close to each other, but if they're turned away and talking to somebody else way over here, you can't hear each other. The intention is what makes audibility. Swedenborg said this about it: "This has enabled me to see that in the spiritual world, all union depends on the way people are facing." So this is how a whole group of angels, as many as you want, can talk to one person on Earth at the same time. Have you ever seen a solar mirror power station? It's this thing, I think they've made a couple of them out in the desert, where you have a bunch of mirrors in a circle and they all point their sunlight, a mirror can reflect the sun, they all point their sunlight right into the middle, into this one place. And that place gets super burning hot with energy, and it can make a ton of electricity. Same kind of thing happens with a group of angels using one person as the focal point for all their energy. A group of angels will send an envoy spirit to go talk to you when you're in the world. The envoy turns toward the person, so they're connected, and then every other member of that community turns toward, not you, but toward this spirit. And so all of their intention and thought and wisdom concentrates in this person and inspires them with what to say and how to be, and this person becomes like a full representation or ambassador of everything in this community. So you are talking not just to the wisdom and intelligence of one person, but of the whole community that's behind them. It seems to such envoys entirely as though they were talking on their own, and to the others as though they themselves were. So a union of several with one is achieved by the way they face. Everybody feels like they're having this conversation because it's really a joining of one with many. That's cool. We have approximations of that here, where you can get trained by an organization and then you represent them, but it goes to the next step in the spiritual world, because there's deeper, more intimate, more powerful union that is possible. And this is part of the way that the spiritual and the physical worlds can connect to each other. Okay, friends, that's the mechanics of the system by which the Lord, through the spiritual world, has been communicating with human beings for thousands of years. It doesn't mean that every communication that you're going to get from the spiritual world is good or is an angel. There are actually bad spirits that want to connect with you as well. We're going to check that out in our next episode. But for now, angels can talk to you. There are mechanisms by which they can do that. The important thing to take away is that angel communication is always about trying to help you become more angelic. So trying to make it so that you get influenced to live by the kind of love and wisdom that angels live by, so that you can be an angel right here on earth. Angel communication doesn't have to come through glowy lights. It can come from your neighbor, and it can come from people you meet on the street. So go out there and do some angel communication today.